Have you ever felt a persistent emptiness that nothing seems to fill? A fatigue that sleep doesn't cure? A subtle but persistent feeling that something essential is missing, even when all the pieces of your life seem to be in place? These aren't random symptoms or signs of something wrong with you. They're quantum signals, whispers from the field that something in how you're observing reality has shifted out of alignment. The observer effect isn't just happening to electrons in a laboratory. It's happening in your life right now in every moment, whether you're conscious of it or not. Most spiritual teachings focus on what you need to do, practices to perform, affirmations to repeat, visualizations to perfect. But what if the most profound transformation doesn't come from doing anything at all? What if it comes from a fundamental shift in how you're observing your life into being? Today, I want to share with you the forgotten secret that quantum physics revealed almost a century ago. A truth so simple yet so profound that most people miss it entirely. Your observation is not passive, it's creative. And the quality of that observation, who you're being as you observe, directly determines which potential reality collapses into your experience. This isn't abstract theory. This is practical spirituality grounded in quantum science. The famous double-slit experiment showed that the mere act of observation changes how particles behave, from waves of possibility to defined particles with specific locations. This isn't just happening in laboratories, it's happening in your life, right now. The infinite wave of possibilities that is your potential reality is collapsing into specific experiences based on how you're observing. Not what you're observing, but how you're observing, the quality of consciousness you bring to each moment. Take a breath and feel this truth in your body. Your life isn't happening to you, it's responding to you. Not to what you want or what you think you should have, but to the quality of your observation, to who you're being as you witness your reality unfolding. This isn't metaphorical. This is the direct implication of quantum physics that has the power to transform every aspect of your life when fully embodied. The life is observing you too. This may sound strange, but at the quantum level, there is no separation between observer and observed. They are part of one unified field. When you feel that inexplicable emptiness, that weariness that rest doesn't touch, that subtle sense of disconnection even when surrounded by people, these aren't random feelings. They're vibrational symptoms emerging when you've stopped truly seeing yourself. The quantum field is reflecting back to you the quality of your self-observation. Do you observe yourself with compassion or criticism, with acceptance or judgment, with presence or distraction? The field doesn't judge your answer. It simply mirrors it back to you with perfect precision. When you abandon your presence, when you stop being fully present with yourself, reality itself begins to lose coherence. This isn't punishment, it's physics. The observer effect isn't just about what you see, it's about who you're being while you see it. And when you cease to truly witness yourself with loving awareness, the universe sends signals, subtle at first, then increasingly persistent, inviting you back to presence. These signals often begin as a vague sense that something's missing, even when nothing obviously is. You may feel tired regardless of how much you sleep. You might experience a disconnect between what you've achieved and how fulfilled you feel by it. You may notice a subtle background anxiety that doesn't attach to any specific concern. These aren't symptoms to suppress. They're quantum communication, the field reflecting back to you that your observation has lost coherence. Most people try to fix these feelings by changing external circumstances. A new relationship, a better job, a different location, another spiritual practice. But these changes rarely touch the underlying issue, because the issue isn't what you're observing, it's how you're observing. When you observe your life from a state of fragmentation, mind in one place, body in another, emotions suppressed or ignored, you collapse a fragmented reality. The quantum field isn't punishing you. It's responding with perfect fidelity to the quality of your observation. The paradox of quantum manifestation reveals itself here. Desiring with anxiety deactivates precisely what you want to attract. This is perhaps the most common mistake in manifestation practices. People focus intensely on what they want, visualizing it, affirming it, working toward it, all while vibrating a frequency of lack, need, and disconnect. They observe their current reality as insufficient, as something to escape or overcome, and then wonder why that reality persists, despite all their efforts to change it. At the quantum level, This creates a profound contradiction. The universe doesn't respond to what you're asking for. It responds to the frequency you're broadcasting while asking. When you desire from a place of perceived absence, when your observation of the present is colored by the belief that what you want is not here, you're literally instructing the quantum field to collapse more experiences that match that frequency of absence. Think about how most people approach manifestation. They identify something they want: more money, a loving relationship, better health, and then focus on getting it. But embedded in that very approach is the vibrational statement that it is not here now, that I lack this thing I desire. This anxious wanting, even when dressed in spiritual language, is actually sabotage in disguise. It broadcasts to the quantum field, keep showing me evidence of not having this thing I want. And the field, which responds not to your wishes, but to your vibrational broadcast, faithfully delivers more experiences that match that frequency. This isn't about denying your desires or pretending you already have what you want. It's about recognizing that the universe responds not to the content of your request, but to the quality of consciousness from which that request emerges. When you desire from wholeness rather than lack, from appreciation rather than need, from trust rather than anxiety, that's when the quantum field can respond by collapsing experiences that match that frequency of wholeness, appreciation, and trust. The observer effect shows us that particles behave differently when watched versus unwatched. Similarly, your reality behaves differently when observed from different states of consciousness. Observe from lack, and lack persists. Observe from wholeness, and wholeness expands. This isn't magical thinking, it's quantum physics applied to your lived experience. Beware of what I call spectator spirituality, the invisible error of those who watch life without truly integrating with it. This pattern is surprisingly common, especially among those deeply committed to personal growth. They study spiritual teachings, practice meditation, repeat affirmations, create vision boards, yet something remains missing. They're doing all the right things, but transformation remains elusive. Why? Because they've positioned themselves as spectators of their own evolution rather than participants in it. Many spiritual seekers unconsciously create a split between the self that is evolving and the self that is watching that evolution. They observe their progress, analyze their growth, evaluate their practices, all from a subtle position of separation. They're watching their life unfold rather than fully embodying it. This creates a quantum contradiction. The observer is positioned outside what is being observed, creating an energetic disconnect that the field faithfully reflects back as an experience of separation. The quantum leap happens when you stop being a passive spectator of your own existence and become a participant observer, fully present, fully engaged, fully embodied in each moment. The quantum field responds not to your spiritual performance or conscious knowledge, but to your authentic vibrational embodiment. It's not about how many hours you meditate or how many manifestation techniques you've mastered. It's about the quality of presence you bring to each moment, whether you're fully here, fully engaged, fully integrated with your experience. This isn't about adding more spiritual practices to your life. It's about bringing more life to your spiritual practices. It's about closing the gap between the one who observes and what is being observed, recognizing that at the quantum level, they are not separate. When you fully embody this understanding, manifestation ceases to be something you do and becomes something you are. You're no longer trying to attract things from outside yourself. You're collapsing reality through the coherent field of your integrated presence. Consider how often you observe your life from a subtle position of judgment or evaluation. Am I doing this right? Is this enough? How does this compare to where I should be? This positioning, this observational stance, creates a vibrational split that the quantum field reflects back to you as experiences of disconnect, doubt, and dissatisfaction. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your observation itself contains a fundamental misalignment between the observer and the observed. The true quantum shift happens when you recognize that you are not separate from what you're observing. You are not watching your life. You are your life, observing itself into being through your consciousness. This shift from spectator to participant observer changes everything, not because you're doing anything differently, but because the quality of your observation has fundamentally transformed. Here's a simple yet profound exercise to activate your internal observer field and collapse aligned realities. Choose a moment each day to stop, breathe, and observe something ordinary: a tree, a cup, a memory, even your own hand, but observe it with total presence as if seeing it for the first time. Bring your full attention to this observation, without judgment, without analysis, without the usual mental commentary that accompanies perception. As you observe, notice the quality of your observation. Are you present or distracted? Open or contracted? Curious or bored? Don't try to change anything, simply notice. Then gently shift your attention to include the one who is observing, not as a concept, but as a felt experience. Who is this awareness that is perceiving? What is the quality of this consciousness that is witnessing? Allow yourself to rest in this expanded awareness that includes both the observer and the observed as aspects of one unified field. This practice slows the mind, harmonizes your vibration, and activates a state of neurospiritual coherence. It's not about seeing something different. It's about seeing differently. You begin to perceive that it's not the world that changes. It's your way of observing that collapses new versions of it into your experience. This isn't a technique to get something. It's a recalibration of your observer, a shift in the quality of consciousness from which you're creating your reality. Practice this for just a few minutes each day, and you'll begin to notice subtle shifts in how reality responds to you. Synchronicities increase. Solutions appear more readily. Resistance softens. Not because you're controlling the world, but because you're changing the observer that's collapsing the world into experience. You're moving from fragmented observation to coherent observation, and the quantum field faithfully reflects this shift back to you as more coherent experiences. This exercise isn't about adding another practice to your spiritual to-do list. It's about bringing a new quality of presence to moments you're already experiencing. You can do this while waiting in line, sitting in traffic, washing dishes, or walking to your car. The external activity doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of presence you bring to it, the coherence of your observation. As you deepen this practice, you'll begin to notice that the observer effect isn't just happening during these dedicated moments. It's happening continuously in every aspect of your life. Every thought, every emotion, every perception is an act of observation that's collapsing potential into experience. The question isn't whether you're using the observer effect. The question is whether you're using it consciously or unconsciously. Sometimes the signal calling you to shift your observation is too subtle for the mind to grasp, but too clear for the soul to ignore. Not all quantum communication comes as clear thoughts or dramatic revelations. Some signals don't shout, they vibrate. You won't hear them with your ears, but you'll feel them as a subtle misalignment, a dense silence, a persistent synchronicity. These are the field's whispers, inviting you to observe what you've been unwilling or unable to see. These subtle signals often manifest as a feeling that something's off, even when you can't identify what it is. A relationship that looks perfect on paper but feels subtly draining. A career that meets all your logical criteria but leaves you vaguely unfulfilled. A spiritual practice that makes sense intellectually but doesn't resonate in your body. These aren't failures of your circumstances. They're invitations to shift how you're observing those circumstances, to bring a different quality of consciousness to your experience. The observer effect begins where logic ends and consciousness awakens. This is the frontier where quantum reality reveals itself, not through intellectual understanding, but through direct experience. When you feel these subtle signals, don't dismiss them as irrational or unimportant. They're quantum communication, more precise than any language, guiding you toward alignment. These signals often appear in patterns of 3. Something catches your attention, then appears again in a different context, then emerges a third time in an unexpected way. This isn't coincidence. It's the quantum field highlighting something that requires a shift in your observation. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because evolution is calling you to a new level of coherence, a new quality of consciousness from which to observe your reality into being. Pay attention to what repeatedly appears in your awareness, especially things that seem insignificant yet persist. A particular word that keeps showing up in conversations, a specific type of person you keep encountering, a certain emotion that arises in diverse situations. These patterns aren't random. They're quantum breadcrumbs leading you toward what needs your conscious observation, what's ready to shift when witnessed with presence. The field is infinitely patient. It will continue sending these signals, increasing in intensity and clarity, until you respond with awareness. Not because it's forcing you to change, but because your soul has already chosen an evolution that your conscious mind may not yet recognize. These signals are simply your higher awareness communicating with your everyday consciousness, inviting you into greater alignment. When you feel these subtle signals, the response isn't to analyze them or figure them out. It's to bring presence to them, to observe them without judgment, without the need to understand or control. Simply witness with open awareness. This quality of observation itself, this presence without agenda, is often exactly the shift that's being invited. Not a different action, but a different quality of consciousness brought to the same experience. The observer effect isn't just a quantum principle, it's a spiritual invitation, a continuous call to evolve the quality of consciousness from which you're creating your reality. This invitation never stops. It's present in every moment, every circumstance, every experience. The question is, are you listening? Are you responding? Are you willing to shift not just what you observe, but who you're being as the observer? This willingness is the key to conscious creation, not forcing, not controlling, not manipulating reality to match your desires, but allowing yourself to shift into a quality of observation that naturally collapses the experiences you wish to have. Not because you're making them happen, but because you're tuning into the frequency where they're already happening, where they already exist as potential waiting to be observed into form. Your life right now, in all its aspects, is a perfect reflection of how you've been observing it into being. Not what you've been wanting or trying to create, but the quality of consciousness from which you've been observing. This isn't about blame or responsibility. It's about recognition. Recognizing the profound creative power of your observation and choosing to use it consciously rather than unconsciously. This recognition transforms how you approach challenges. Instead of trying to fix external circumstances, you shift the quality of observation that's collapsing those circumstances into your experience. You don't fight against what is. You change how you're observing what is. This subtle but profound difference is what separates those who struggle against reality from those who flow with it, shaping it through the coherence of their observation. Consider a difficulty you're currently facing. Rather than asking, "How can I solve this problem?" ask instead, "From what quality of consciousness am I observing this situation? What would shift if I observed it from trust rather than fear, from curiosity rather than judgment, from possibility rather than limitation?" This isn't about denying the challenge, it's about approaching it from a different observational vantage point, one that allows solutions and possibilities invisible to your previous state. The observer effect is always operating whether you're conscious of it or not. Every moment you're collapsing potential into experience through the quality of your observation. The invitation isn't to start using this principle. It's to start using it consciously, to bring awareness to how you're already creating your reality, and to make deliberate shifts in the quality of consciousness from which you observe. This isn't about perfection. It's about presence and choice. It's about becoming increasingly aware of how you're observing reality and making conscious shifts in that observation. It's about recognizing when you've slipped into old patterns and gently returning to a more aligned state. It's about consistency rather than intensity, the steady embodiment of coherent observation rather than occasional peaks of forced positivity. The practice is simple, though not always easy. Bring awareness to the quality of your observation in each moment. Notice when you're observing from fear, lack, or limitation. Don't judge yourself for this. It's completely natural. Simply recognize it as an opportunity to shift. Take a breath. Feel your body. Then consciously choose to observe from a different state, perhaps curiosity, trust, or appreciation. Do this not to get something, but as an exploration of how different qualities of observation collapse different experiences. As you deepen this practice, you'll begin to notice subtle shifts in how reality responds to you. Synchronicities increase, solutions appear more readily, resistance softens, not because you're controlling the world, but because you're changing the observer that's collapsing the world into experience. You're moving from fragmented observation to coherent observation, and the quantum field faithfully reflects this shift back to you as more coherent experiences. Tomorrow morning, as you wake up, try something different. Before your habitual patterns of observation take hold, pause. Take 3 conscious breaths. Ask yourself, what quality of consciousness will I bring to this day? Who will I be as the observer of my experience? Then move through your day with awareness that you're not just witnessing reality, you're participating in its creation through the nature of your observation. Notice how differently your day unfolds when you consciously embody different qualities of observation. Remember, you will wobble, you will forget, you will find yourself observing from old patterns. When this happens, don't judge yourself or consider it failure. Simply notice it with compassion and gently shift back to coherent observation. Each time you do this, you strengthen your capacity to consciously use the observer effect. You become increasingly skilled at deliberately collapsing the reality you wish to experience, rather than unconsciously recreating patterns from the past. The observer effect isn't calling you to do more. It's inviting you to be more, to bring a more coherent, more conscious, more integrated quality of observation to your life. Not because what you're doing is wrong, but because who you're being as you do it is what truly shapes your reality. The invitation isn't to change the world. It's to change the observer, knowing that the observed must shift in response. This isn't magical thinking. It's quantum physics applied to lived experience. The observer effect is real, documented and undeniable in the laboratory. The only question is whether you'll continue to use it unconsciously, recreating familiar patterns, or begin to use it consciously, collapsing new possibilities into your experience through the coherence of your observation. I invite you to join our community of conscious observers by subscribing to this channel. In the comments below, share one subtle signal you've been receiving that might be inviting you to shift your observation. Your comment isn't just engagement, it's a declaration to the quantum field, a conscious positioning of your observation. Thank you for your presence, your openness, and your willingness to explore this profound principle. Until next time, remember, the observer effect isn't just calling you, it is you, recognizing your own creative power and choosing to use it consciously. The only question is whether you'll answer the call.